Hello there, and welcome to another officially Devon Abridged campaign, where I commentate on the gameplay of a strategy game, including only the most interesting or vital to the progression of things parts. Today we're playing as Yanzhou, Lu Bu's faction, in Rise of Three Kingdoms, the mod for Medieval Total War 2. We're playing as this faction in particular because they start surrounded by various major players, so things will get going early on. As the campaign opens, we get a choice about whether we should allow assassins to be part of the game. The fact that it even asked made me paranoid, so I just said, okay, no, there's probably something really annoying that happens if you say yes, is essentially why that's there. So here we are, Yanzhou with a reddish-brown faction here, and we are a splinter group, sort of, from the blue faction, Cao Cao's faction. Lu Bu is a very famous warrior, and he's convinced a whole load of Cao Cao's old retainers to join him and serve his family instead. So we've created this little splinter area for ourselves, but we are immediately at war with Cao Cao because we are betraying him. This is potentially a problem because Cao Cao is one of the stronger factions in the game and the one who wins in this historical situation. So we're going to go right at him with no mercy. I put two armies together from what we start with, one under a famous warrior Zhang Liao and one under Lu Bu himself, positioned at the border, ready to just go for it. One thing we'll need to manage as we go along is this belief system where each region wants something different for the future of China. We want people to want factionism, which I presume just means having various warlords control their own parts. But Liu Bei, to our east for example, wants a revival of the old empire. Basically it's a religion mechanic repurposed to mean your political alignment, and we can use agents to convert that. I'll probably only bring that up again if it really matters to the progress of the campaign, because it very much happens in the background. We get the opportunity to adopt someone at the start of the second turn, and you can see there's a quite detailed stats system in this mod. I will be ignoring the stats mostly. That's the way I play. I tend to not even want to know the stats attached to units and go based on my gut instinct because it's more fun for me that way. It feels more immersive as well, not knowing the numbers attached to someone and just getting a vague gist of it. Anyway, so we get the opportunity to pick our next heir. Not many choices. We've got the guy I just adopted, a 1-year-old kid, and our eldest, Lu Lingqi, we can't pick as heir because she is a female. So not a very big family, but it's worth keeping in mind that that family is particularly small, since if they all die, then we lose the campaign, something that stung me in Medieval Total War 2 before. Since Cao Cao didn't attack us, we're going to attack him as our second turn begins. Our relations begin to degrade as we attack him, which I suppose is to be expected, and very quickly it's down to very poor. I've united both of my armies under Zhang Liao and Lu Bu to attack Zhuyi Yang here, but there's also an army outside commanded by Xiahou Dun, one of Cao Cao's best commanders. He retreated from combat, so nothing happened there as we saw. One other concern that will be going on in the background of this campaign is setting up watchtowers to keep our line of sight on the borders of our territories, but again that's something probably not going to be covered in this series very much. Now in Cao Cao's turn, I thought they might sally out or attack us or something, but they don't quite manage it. They set up as if they're going to. They put units all over the place around our besieging forces, but no battle takes place. That's great because we'll have the initiative now to pick which battles we want from the various options we'll have here. Cao Cao's forces are split up into lots of small groups. That means all we need to do is isolate the groups one by one and attack them, and we should be able to get some good battles going. I'm going to start with this one in the top left. I'd brought down a few more reinforcements as well, by the way. That's that third little army you can see beside Zhang Liao, and more are on the way from the north. And those guys coming down from the north can actually initiate a battle with this small group that I just pushed away from the other ones. Zhang Liao will come in as reinforcements, and overall this looks like a good setup for a first battle. We're taking on Yu Jin, another of Cao Cao's powerful generals, perhaps a chance to kill him, and more importantly, all of the troops he leads. Our reinforcements came onto the field right next to where the enemy deployed, so we were going to be fighting right off the bat. Our archers started firing at some enemy cav who came down to take a look at us as I was deploying Zhang Liao's army. I was trying to turn off fire arrows, but failing here. I think I need to select the units individually to do it. Anyway, those Cav just stood there and took the arrows, so that's what we like to see. Their prospects for an attack were quite poor, especially because I was setting up my heavy cavalry right in front of them. The enemy do have a hill on their side, so I didn't want to advance towards them or anything. I just wanted to wait for Wei Shu to bring those reinforcements along the top of the hill to distract the enemy first. Those Cav eventually get bored of being shot and decide to run away. Overall a pretty decent skirmish to start the fight. But then the enemy started coming down the hill towards us, leading with these crossbows. So it looks like I'm not going to be able to just sit here and dictate the terms of battle. Still, this setup isn't too bad because we've got 3 units of archers able to attack the enemy's 1. So even an uphill skirmish there should be okay for us. The enemy can just charge down into our archers, which would allow them to win that skirmish, and that is what they do. Their cavalry actually hit our archers here. We didn't take too many losses though, they just about skirmished away, and since our melee troops were right behind them, we can lock those Cav down. I'm going to try and outflank the enemy on the left with some of the heavy Cav, quote unquote. That's supposed to be only heavy Cav, but some light Cav have got stuck in the group because of control jank and me not really knowing the controls of Medieval 2 very well, which will be a running theme, by the way, of this campaign, me struggling with the controls and not being able to do what I want to do. Anyway, Wei Shu's group now arrives just as the battle starts, so his archers can shoot the enemy's archers up on this hill. They're going to go down anyway because my cavalry have dodged some enemy spears and are now able to attack them. We'll be able to see here that this mod does include a few Dynasty Warriors models for famous characters, so Zhang Liao is like the Dynasty Warriors 4 or 5 model somehow put into the game. Lu Bu has the same treatment if we see him at some point. Now we've got the enemy general charging down the hill into my heavy infantry. He's got heavy infantry himself, so he should be able to do okay in that melee, but he's all on his own. We're ready to surround him. We've got archers ready, we've got Cav ready. He shouldn't be able to last too long. Up the hill, the fight is won, essentially. I took out the enemy's archers. The enemy had some spears here, who my Cav had to keep microing away from, but the archers I had up here will soon be able to take out those lightly armoured spearmen and resolve that whole situation. The battle is, broadly speaking, a mess, and it is hard to tell what's going on, which again is a running theme which we'll be seeing in this campaign. But things are going well. We've got the enemy general surrounded. Very soon Yu Jin is killed, and at that moment everything that's left, which was not very much, routes, and that brings an end to the fight. I do need to go into the rout phase because I think you need to kill 85% of the enemy force for the rest to just surrender after the fight. So I need to kill a few more men to technically defeat the enemy army. After a while that's done, and we can quit the battle. A decent result then, lost 160 something troops, killed nearly 700, and killed Yu Jin, who is a very high level commander. All good stuff. I also got a whole load of my lost crossbowmen back here, thanks to the mysterious casualties healed mechanic of Medieval 2 that sometimes takes effect. That's good. I noticed that on this loading screen as we go back to the campaign map, it's got Yu Jin talking about how his liege, Lord Cao, doesn't spare soldiers who surrender. That apparently goes for his own men as well, because we've got a few captured enemies. I offered to ransom them back. The amount wasn't very much. I'm sure they could have afforded that, but they chose not to, and that means those troops are automatically executed. Goodbye to them. Wei Shu apparently performed very well in that battle. We can adopt him into our family, but since I just adopted someone I chose not to. We do have a nice message here saying that something should never be translated. Looks like something's going wrong with Wei Shu. We'll just leave him to it. Now we've still got movement points available after that fight, so we can go on and try to start another one. I attacked Xu Chu to our east, but he fell back. And then, rather than going after him again, I wanted to see if I could get a battle that would also involve Lu Bu, because you can see there's a small Cao force between him and Xu Chu. So I figured if I attacked this small group with Zhang Liao, Lu Bu would get involved and we'd end up having an overwhelming advantage. Lu Bu does get drawn in, however it doesn't look like we have an overwhelming advantage, and that's because Xiahou Dun also takes part in this fight. Not sure how, because I thought he was 2 tiles away since he's on the south side of the town, but not quite sure. The reinforcement mechanics remain a mystery to me. So we've ended up not dividing and conquering as much as we wanted to here. We've accidentally triggered a decisive battle. Since retreating can be quite janky, I don't trust my ability to re-engage with the battle I wanted to, so I just went for this fight. This time we get off to a slow start because the enemy just had a few units on the field to start with. We have to wait for their reinforcements to show up. I sent my heavy cav to face off against those few units, while the main army is going to gradually make its way over to the east part of the map to deal with Zhu Chu's reinforcements coming from over there. My own reinforcements, by the way, won't actually be showing up because I forgot there's a 20 unit limit in Medieval 2, so having all those extra units off the field only matters for when I lose units. They can be replaced, but they'll be replaced in a completely different location, so it's not especially helpful for the minute-to-minute fighting. Meaning we're actually facing a harder battle than I expected, because that rule does not apply to the AI. I'm sending my heavy cav to attack this random unit of archers from the enemy's initial group that, for whatever reason, decided to engage us while the rest of their troops were moving back to link up with Xiahou Dun coming from the southwest. A quick charge against the archers deals with them nicely. Meanwhile, the main bulk of the army is starting to engage Zhu Chu's army, which is below them on the hill. We catch them out of formation because they were just running across the map towards Xiahou Dun, but there wasn't any particular advantage I could glean from this, like their archers weren't out in front or anything. I couldn't charge down and get a nice engagement. I did charge down, broadly speaking, just because I wanted the hill charge advantage and because their infantry was a bit worse than mine, so I thought it's going to be fine to just try and steamroll them. Their general does come right up the centre, so I'm going to have to deploy my one unit of reserve spears to try and deal with him, while we go to outflank them on the left with some missile cav. We'll end up with lots of blobby fights going on down there. That will be somewhat hard to interpret, but we'll just try to win, and we need to win fast before the enemy's next army arrives, since we need to wipe everything out and then reform up, otherwise we're going to be outflanked very majorly. My cavalry are going to be key to this. I stick them into the enemy's blob on their right side and start inflicting losses and routing units away. But the enemy's advanced unit coming from the other side actually caught up with some of my cav and drew them into a melee over here. I believe that's actually the guy I adopted recently, so we need to get him out of combat since he is now a prince of the realm. But yes, the enemy are about to arrive. My archers are going to rotate to face that direction, and I just need to hope that things clear up here in the next few seconds. And as luck would have it, we kill Zhu Chu somewhere on the enemy right. That's certainly going to help. Now my right is freed up to attack what remains of their centre, and their morale will be low. My cav are swarming all over the place, and generally speaking, we actually do sort this mess out just in time. As the enemies start to flee, we don't really want to focus on pursuing. We'll quickly get back up the hill to a nice position and reform our line if we can. And we are able to do so just about. The enemy's leading units do engage us just before we finish forming up, but we end up with a favourable fight, the enemy's light infantry fighting our heavy infantry, and loads of my archers fighting a few of their archers, so that's fine for now. We'll wait in this formation for the enemy to deploy the rest of their troops. They're coming at us with cavalry on both flanks, and in both cases I'm going to have to use my own cavalry to try and stop them. We'll try and overwhelm them with numbers on our left since we don't have any sort of class advantage, and on the right they deployed light cav, against which I deployed heavy cav. Xiahou Dun is attacking with his heavy cav down the centre, but luckily he's attacking my heavy spearmen, so he is halted there and will be forced to pull back in a second, since the AI is kind of good in the old days. In the old days the AI didn't get its units killed quite so much as it does now. Anyway, we managed to overwhelm things on the left flank. The right flank's a bit more hairy since the enemy just didn't die to our attacks. I'm going to charge in the centre here and get all of the melees going. Again, going to be really hard to tell what's going on, but hopefully we'll be able to win. Lu Bu finally arrives. He would have arrived earlier, but I forgot to give him orders at the start of the fight. So finally he charges into battle from the opposite corner of the map. As you can see, things on the left are now done, but we need to escape from this area because the enemy's infantry are trying to engage our cav. Here I had to run away as I realised I was charging all of my light cav into some enemy spearmen. Good that I spotted that. Lu Bu's trying to take out some light cavalry here with his own heavy cav, but it just wasn't working as quickly as I thought it would, and he's about to be outflanked by some newly arriving enemy infantry. Things are stable in the centre, with Xiahou Dun fighting merrily against my spearmen once again after re-attempting his charge. Hopefully that's just going to grind into our favour. our other reinforcement unit arrives, a unit of heavy spearmen, so they can finally clear up the cav attack on our right, and Lu Bu is freed up to go and attack the enemy's centre from the back. On the left, we're still trying to dodge enemy units, and I ended up drawing some of the enemy's halberd troops to outflank us, but that's fine. I can use my archers to fire at them here, while the light cav just run from the enemy's heavy swordsmen. It's great because those heavy swords would probably be doing loads of damage if they were there in the central melee, but at the moment they're just running around doing nothing, so the light cav are serving a great purpose. In the centre, broadly speaking, things have now routed away, and it's coming down to just the last few units. It's just been an absolute grind, but we've had the enemy surrounded, so it's a grind in our favour. Xiahou Dun and his bodyguards are the last guys left in here. I'm guessing Xiahou Dun has really high melee stats because he's another of the great warriors like Lu Bu, so he'll have loads of buffs. But against loads of heavy cav and heavy spears, he can't last forever, and eventually he goes down. It looks like he was the last guy alive in that blob, since the fighting stops once he dies. So this is a great achievement. One of the most famous generals of the era has been defeated. As for the remaining infantry, I think there's just 2 units wandering about here and there. I'm just skirmishing away from them and generally not engaging, but I thought if I just run at them now, they might rout, because the morale shock from Xiahou Dun dying is probably quite great, and that indeed is the case. So that ends the battle. We've killed enough percent of the enemy force to just end the battle right now, and take a look at the result. Looks like we killed something like 3 to 4 times the amount of men that we lost, and obviously we killed 2 of the enemy's leading commanders, and we didn't even use all of our units thanks to that reinforcement cap thing. So overall, a very good fight. We had loads of captives, so many that I decided to execute them. I didn't want the risk that the enemy would actually ransom them and get all of those men back. So we go ahead and kill them, and that completely clears up the huge mess we had around Shuiyang. Everyone's gone, now it's just us and the garrison. That's what we like to see. Cao Cao is not happy with this arrangement, but we wouldn't expect him to be. Lots of trait increases and various bonuses assigned to the victorious generals there. I did a bit of spying to see, will we just have another wave of Cao Cao armies coming to attack us in the next turn? They do have more stuff. There's a big army at Xuchang, there's a decently sized army that looks like it's already on its way towards us, and a few small groups around the place. Looks like they're trying to push towards Yuanshao in the north, very historical. They actually offer me a ceasefire in their turn, which is interesting, shows they think they're beaten. I said I would agree to it if they give me the city that I already have under siege, since that's what I'm going for here, and I've already put in quite a lot of work to get in there, and they reject that deal absolutely. Obviously they haven't been beaten enough. More forces are on the way. One army does a big loop around the back of us there, that could be annoying, and more armies just walk right at us. Those 2 there, much smaller, but one has a high level commander. We need to do something to clear up this mess again then. Armies all over the place, and one tactic I can use is bribery. The small army just to the south of Shuiyang doesn't have a general leading it, and it's not very big. That means there's a chance that we can just bribe them to defect. I make the offer, and they say they'll do it for absolutely loads of money, but we do happen to have loads of money at the moment, so I thought let's do this, because this might prove to be invaluable. So now these units are on our side. It's just a load of light spearmen, but it means that army isn't in a position to reinforce the city anymore, and that got me to thinking we can actually attack the city this turn, because most of the units around here aren't in range either. Those 2 big armies that are standing next to each other can be ignored for this turn, and we can just press our objective. All I needed to do was push away this army over here, because I thought maybe they'll end up somehow in reinforcement range. I don't think they actually are, but we can push them away just because they're a small army. So we do that and then go right back over to the city. This is weirdly setting up a second siege, but that doesn't count. It's actually the first siege that we'll carry on with. Here it is. We can make the assault, and now all 4 of our armies are in reinforcement range, and none of the enemies are. And as a special bonus, it turns out that Cao Cao is leading the garrison himself. This is the perfect thing to discover. So now we're going to have a, not necessarily easy, but ultimately destined to be a victory for us battle, because we have so many men to pour into this assault. they'll have streets to defend and the like, and we will have to push through some units that aren't necessarily worse than our own, so heavy casualties may be expected, but the chance to kill Cao Cao himself is unmissable. I'll be getting to this battle in the next part of this series, so I hope you've enjoyed this first part covering roughly the first hour of gameplay. And if this is your first time watching an Abridged series, thank you very much for getting to the end, and do feel free to poke around my channel. I've got plenty more stuff like this and some other weird stuff as well. Don't forget to subscribe, etc. I'll see everybody on the next part.